Great to be here with you on this Wednesday. Kevin Thomas, BJ Bennett, Ben Troop. Glad you're with us. Plenty to get to here on the show. We'll hear from Jamie Bradford of JB and Goldwater Show coming up in about 30 minutes here on the show. We'll have South Carolina and Georgia talk with him. Also, Corey Woodruff of the Falcoholic will join us 4:35. We will chat with him in hour number 2. And in the final hour, Gerald Anderson, former Ware County Gator, Georgia Bulldog, will join us on 3 and Out. We'll talk Georgia and that defensive front, which is very, very good. Also going to play a little Jeopardy on the show in honor of Alex Trebek and certainly Norm Macdonald, who got popular on Saturday Night Live with the Weekend Update and by portraying Burt Reynolds on the Celebrity Jeopardy. So we'll have some Jeopardy for you coming up in the final hour of the program. But some big games coming up this weekend. BJ and Ben, of teams looking to pull off a pretty hefty upset in the college football ranks and some huge lines. We talked about this during the pre-show. Georgia Tech and Clemson, obviously that is a huge underdog game for the Yellow Jackets, 28.5. But Georgia, South Carolina is 32. And again, Georgia Clemson, pretty similar. But Georgia Tech, I think after losing to Northern Illinois and their one win being over an FCS program at this point, a smaller line in South Carolina, Georgia at this point. Florida, 14.5 over Bama. Georgia Southern, 23.5 at Arkansas coming up this weekend. Can any of those teams actually slay Goliath and turn college football on its head a little bit with a big upset?
I'm really amazed at that 32-point line with Georgia and South Carolina. I mean, for a conference game, South Carolina's got a really good defensive front. I know they, haven't played necessarily great competition, but South Carolina's undefeated and has had success in recent years against Georgia, and that line is 32. It just goes to show you what people think about Georgia and the Bulldogs. But look, there's always a chance. I think the least likely of those four, Georgia Tech beating Clemson, South Carolina beating Georgia, Florida beating Alabama, Georgia Southern beating Arkansas, would be Georgia Tech over Clemson. And I say that because Clemson already has a loss. I mean, we're not going to see Clemson at 1-2. You're not going to see this team with DJ Uiagalelei, with Justin Ross, with the great talent that they have, start out 1-2. I mean, I think if Georgia Tech is to do it, it's going to be their offensive backfield. Jahmyr Gibbs making plays, Jordan Yates, who's been tremendous. You've seen him come in for Jeff Sims and really add a downfield passing element to that offense. So I think if you're Georgia Tech and you're looking at, okay, we know Clemson is, refocused and is trying to win out and win in a big way every week after that opening loss to Georgia. I think your hope is that you can match some of their big plays. I don't think at the line of scrimmage, you have the depth they do, but I think if you see, Clemson move up and down the field, I think given what you did last week, albeit against Kennesaw State, you feel like with Gibbs and certainly Yates, you can at least move the ball some. So when I look at Georgia Tech, Clemson, I don't know that we're going to see Georgia Tech slow down Clemson offensively. I think Clemson corrected some things after week 1. I think the hope, Ben, for Georgia Tech is try to get your playmakers in space, get the ball to Gibbs, and let Yates do his thing. But to me, this would be the most surprising of the 4 games we're talking about here.
28.5, Georgia Tech, Clemson, as you mentioned, 32, South Carolina. I know certain times when you start saying these things, it comes down to, how you playing more than who you playing. That 14.5 with Florida and Alabama, that's still, I thought it was going to be higher than that but maybe that's just the factor of giving Florida the benefit of the doubt because it is at home and the way that defense has been playing. 23.5, Georgia Southern, Arkansas. BJ, sometimes recent history might not actually be the overall barometer. When you look at it, when South Carolina did beat Georgia, not too many years removed from that, a lot of things went their way, like the 3 picks thrown by Jake Fromm in the rain, just wasn't able to really establish anything offensively, and they just was able to have their way. And kicker makes a big field goal and they lose the game. I understand that the mind game's going on right now, Kevin, with Shane Beamer and Kirby Smart saying this is the best team I've ever seen Georgia, have, and that might not be the farthest thing from the truth. Florida's obviously going to have an opportunity because of the defense and because maybe Ty Grantham can call his best game ever to kind of rattle Bryce Young and maybe try to, force them to be, one-dimensional, dare I say, force Alabama to beat you running the football instead of throwing the football, which still might be, a recipe for disaster. But the South Carolina-Georgia one is always going to be the most intriguing because you're in the same division. You play each other every year. And this South Carolina team is more of a question mark than anything else because we just don't know how good or bad or mediocre this team is. Georgia is going to definitely come out to play, at night, between the hedges, got to wait all day. It doesn't look like it's going to bode well for South Carolina, but I've seen crazy things happen. Now, and I'm going to give you one game. Wasn't Florida like a 24-point favorite against LSU last year in the Swamp? And they lost to a true freshman quarterback. Now, I know we get caught up in how a team is playing thus far, but I'm going to say this about Georgia last year. Even though you got a total different team, Georgia's defense was lights out until they played Alabama, and obviously Alabama is the barometer. Didn't play well. Georgia's defense was stellar when they played South Carolina 3 years ago, and you saw what happened with Jake Fromm and those guys. I think that, once again, Florida's going to have as good as a shot as any because it is at home. But don't count South Carolina out just yet, Kevin and BJ, because this is what the odds makers say, and that's based on what hasn't happened for one team and what is happening for the current team. But I think that because South Carolina understands what's at stake, because one thing South Carolina has, BJ and Kevin, as of late, is a good defense. They got a good defense this year, not the defense of the past, not the defense that Georgia has, but they are good enough. I mean, Georgia Tech is probably going to be a watch, and Georgia Southern, wow. Good luck, especially with Arkansas coming off that huge high of beating Texas. But watch out for them Florida boys, and maybe South Carolina can make the game more interesting now, especially if Stetson Bennett plays and they can find a way to make those receivers run routes.
I mean, I actually think if you want, because of something you just mentioned, I actually think like Georgia Southern might be in better shape because, again, you're talking about a huge program-defining victory. That's like the big exhale game. We smacked Texas. Georgia Southern coming off a game where their head coach said, we don't lose like that. We don't play like that. I'm sure they've had a focus week of practice. Now, is it likely? It's an uphill battle, but I do think Georgia Southern, of some of what we're looking at, probably gives Arkansas a better game than 23. I mean, Georgia Southern Arkansas is a closer spread than South Carolina Georgia or Georgia Tech Clemson, 2 conference games. Arkansas playing a team from the Sun Belt is a closer game than 2 conference games in the ACC and SEC. That's amazing. I think maybe Georgia Southern has a chance to keep it closer than people think in this game, coming off a bad loss for them, and Arkansas off a really program and coaching tenure defining win last week.
No, I agree with you. It's kind of it's kind of one of those market correction games potentially where everything comes back a little bit more to the mean, where Arkansas probably played above themselves a little bit. Not that they're not better than Texas, but to dominate that game the way they did and win by 19 points and just control the game. To your point, Kevin, I agree. It's just natural. Even if your coaching staff, players are all focused on the week-to-week mentality, it's just natural to kind of celebrate that, live in the moment, take a deep breath, exhale, like you said, and go, wow, we just beat Texas by 19, and then look ahead to some of your other SEC games. And Georgia Southern, I don't think has really played well yet. So they're going to play better than they've shown the last couple of weeks, and you have of course, Tomlin going to play this weekend against Arkansas. Don't know yet about J.D. King. But, yes, I'm with you, Kevin. I think that's a little bit of a trap game or a tricky game for Arkansas coming off of the big emotional win, where you were a national story, to now come back and play a Georgia Southern team that is still very talented, still very good, just hasn't looked the part yet, and they're getting their starting quarterback back. So I do think that one is one to certainly keep an eye on. And, Ben, to go back to your point about South Carolina's got a chance, I think if they're going to make this game close, and you talk about emotion, this is Saturday night, between the hedges, conference opener. Georgia's being talked about as a national championship type team, number 2 in the country, look great. You talk about a letdown game. I think we all would have understood had Georgia beat, BYU or UAB something like, 30-14. I think we all would have understood. No, 56-7. I think it has to start with South Carolina's defensive front. And if you go back to the upset a couple of years ago, you're right, Ben. You had Israel Mukuamu with the 3 interceptions of Jake Fromm, but you also had Javon Kinlaw, making big plays in this series. And I think you look at the South Carolina defensive front, there's Kingsley Enagbare, an all-SEC edge. There's Aaron Sterling, a senior who's been there. There's Jordan Strawn, the transfer from Georgia State, who led the nation in sacks a year ago. And you've had, a little bit of instability along the offensive front. I know everybody's talking about Zeb and everybody's talking about the running game. If South Carolina is going to keep this close, it's got to start with their defensive line.
Since 2017, Georgia has been a national championship contender since 2017. So we can go back 4 years, and we're gonna be saying the same thing about South Carolina versus Georgia. South Carolina hasn't been up to par with Georgia for a long time, right? So when you start talking about these narratives, it's been like that for a long time. I mean, 2017 there was a national championship favorite. 2018, 2019. Last year, was kind of a wash because obviously, you got an all SEC schedule. But the thing about it is, South Carolina has proven that they could, just like when Georgia plays Auburn and you have like some freaky little games, South Carolina understands that, look, man, they're always going to be a more talented team than us. So they're always going to have, a better scheme than us. So, and I just think that that's what bodes well for a team like South Carolina. When you don't know how good or bad a team is, you can go out there and play loose. Nobody, BJ, me and you were in the car when Georgia lost to South Carolina, and we were shocked. We were like, what? What just happened? So nobody thought that game was going to happen that way. The guy had to have 3 picks. A lot of things can't happen for Georgia because we talking about how good the Georgia defense is, and we understand that. If Georgia can force some turnovers, who knows? I mean, South Carolina can force some turnovers, who knows? It's probably going to be rough, but I do think that when you think about the history of these teams, I mean, anything can happen because, like I said, Georgia has been the favorite against South Carolina for probably the last 10 years.
Again, we're going to have some, big games with big lines this weekend involving teams, I guess, the state of Georgia against the state of South Carolina this weekend in the ACC and SEC. And again, one we haven't talked about, we'll talk more about that in just a minute with Florida and Bama. Florida played Alabama very close in the SEC championship game. I know it's a different team for Florida and Alabama, but 14.5 at home in the Swamp. Is there a chance that, and I know we've heard talk about will Anthony Richardson play, and Dan Mullen saying he's going to play. Didn't say the word start, but that with some of that energy, could Florida pull this off here? Is it? I know it's an uphill battle, but that's what we're talking about here in this first segment. Is the teams that have that uphill battle to kind of shock some people this weekend.
If you're going to beat Alabama, you have to beat them with big plays. You look at the last 3 teams to beat Alabama. It's Auburn, it's LSU, it's Clemson. They scored 48, 46, and 44 points in those wins. Right now, Florida is 3rd nationally with 610 yards of offense per game, and they lead the nation in rushing. I think if you can get those home run plays, those highlight, chunk plays, you have a chance. And yes, I'm looking at Anthony Richardson, who already has 2 rushes of over 70 yards and 1 pass completion of over 70 yards. But I'm also looking at Jacob Copeland. I think he might be the name to watch this weekend. He's Florida's number 1 receiver. I know you lost a lot of guys from last year, but Copeland right now is averaging 31 yards per catch. 31. Going back to last season, he has touchdown catches in 4 of his last 5 games. He is a big play home run hitter on the edge. Florida's experienced and savvy defensively. I think this game's going to be a lot closer than I guess most people do.
In order to beat Alabama, it's not about big plays. It's can you go out there and just outdo them at what they do? What Alabama does the best when they just go out there and execute. They don't have to do a bunch of creative things to go out there and beat you. They line up and they beat the man in front of them. They win one-on-one matchups on the outside. Bryce Young goes through his reads and he makes things happen. If you are Florida, if you think you're gonna beat Alabama, with gimmicky plays, good luck with that. I mean, listen, man up. This becomes one of those. I played against Ray Lewis twice in my career in the NFL. He said something that I think he would say, he said, Ben, he would always tell me, he said, 84. He said, it's different when you got to just play football, right? When you just got to play football, it's different. You're going to have to play football this weekend. And Ty Grantham, 4th and Grantham, whatever you want to call it, man, call the best game you can call and force Bryce Young to beat you. I know it's easy for me to say that sitting here in the analyst chair, but I think that this is a game to where, listen, mano and mano, let's see who can go out there and do it. And if you can't, you can't. But if at the end of the game, you was like, man, that reverse pass really messed us up. Yeah, because that's Alabama. They stay at home. You're not going to get them with no gimmicks. You don't beat the best with gimmicks. You beat the best with basics. Get back to the basics, and whoever can outdo each other, getting back to the basics got a shot to get it because home field advantage is going to have to play a part as long as Florida got a lead because if Florida start losing, watch out for them exits because they're going to be being utilized.
We've got more to come here on 3 Now. We'll look at that Florida offense. Anthony Richardson looks like he could play don't know about start, but could play according to Dan Mullen. Also, Jamie Bradford of JB and Goldwater Show will join us coming up in about 20 minutes. We're talking Georgia and South Carolina here on 3 and Out. Good to have you back here, 3 and Out. We'll hear from Jamie Bradford of the JB and Goldwater Show coming up in just a little bit. We'll talk South Carolina and Georgia with him. But obviously, we were talking upsets potentially this week, and would it be the biggest win in quite a while for some of these schools, or just how bad of a loss? And BJ was asking Ben, like, how bad do the players take some of these things? You know, you've seen some bad losses here the first couple of weeks and of college football, some big wins. And what's that kind of environment like when we look at these players, say these guys, like I know Florida State's a guy caught a lot of flack for losing to Jacksonville State and then proposing to his girlfriend on the field after one of the all-time bad losses in program history.
Kevin, DJ, Christian, PJ, to the listeners, there was a great quarterback back in the day, played for a school in Atlanta. He threw the ball away on 4th down. In the press conference, they asked him or something. They said, man, you threw the ball away on 4th down. He says, just a game, dog. You know, and we get mad, right? We get mad. You know why we get mad? Because sometimes you care about something more than the person that's doing it. Like the reason why the guy at Florida State proposed after the game, because it's just a game to him. The reason why we say it's the worst loss in Florida State history, not to the players, to them, it's just a loss. See, they don't, if I'm coming into Florida State, if I'm coming into Vanderbilt, I don't care about the history before I got there, right? I care about what's going on while I'm here. If the game meant that much to him, he wouldn't have proposed. The game don't mean that much to him. It means that much to us, the people that shape narratives. Like, case in point. If Georgia loses to South Carolina this weekend, you know what it's going to be? It's going to be a loss. Now, to a Georgia fan, it's the worst. No, it's not. That's just what we say. You can't make people care more than you care. And I get it. When I was at Florida, maybe I was naive like that. Maybe I ain't understand. There used to be a time to where the product on the field, right? The product on the field had to match the perception off the field. It's not like that anymore. The product on the field is what you see. And it comes down to this is the method of the madness. Look at how bad certain teams had to be to get their coaches. And sometimes you don't even got to be bad. Georgia wasn't even bad. They got their coach. Florida was bad. They got their coach. Alabama just wanted Nick Saban. You got Coach O. You got, you know, so this could be a method. These players don't even know they're a part of it. Listen, let's make sure the players on the field are the worst we've ever seen so we can go out there and get the coach. BJ.
A real major league situation.
Right now. And I'm gonna ask you this, and I want you to be honest. If everything that has happened from Willie Taggart to Coach Norvell to propose, engagements and all that, if all this leads to Deion being the head coach, was it worth it to you?
I mean, that would be something. That's some of the early speculation,
now,
right?
How quick you change your name? Now, hold on. Now, earlier it's the worst, but if it leads to that, because sometimes it's what you end up getting for it, like. Sometimes, BJ and Kevin, you start talking about the product on the field, to the fan, to the boosters, to the alumni. It means something different to all three. The people that love it the most are the fans. The boosters care about the head coach, actually looking the part, acting like he cares. But no, them alumni, man, listen, at my Florida State, it doesn't matter. You are putting the hopes and dreams of your entire university and college in the hands of 18 to 24-year-olds. If they win the game, they go into the club. If they lose the game, they go into the club. It doesn't matter. And if it's the worst loss in our minds, in the history of a program, I am proposing to her no matter going into this game. He said, win or lose, I'm asking her tonight. While the team that just beat us is celebrating, while they planting their flag in the middle of the field. Because Kevin, BJ, Christian, and to all the listeners of your favorite team, as much as it matters, it doesn't. Because if the person on the field don't care, why do we care so much? And you know why we care so much? Because we are doomed. We can't help it at this point. So I love it because I am saying right now that the great Reggie Ball said it's just a game, dog. And guess what? It's not just a game. It's not just a game to us because we don't control the outcome. So fans, alumni, boosters, it's just a game. But in a sense, if the player on the field don't care, you ask yourself, why do we care so much?
No, because we do. We love it. We're tied. No, I'm serious, but it's true. We're tied into the to the schools we like and the teams we like. And having covered a bunch of games, BJ, you can say this. I know having gone to a bunch of games, and I've been at some games where there's been some big losses, and you'll go down to the locker room and you go, man, I kind of thought people would be more upset. Like just kind of like off the one of the first couple of times I went into the locker room of a game like that, I walked in and everybody's just kind of hanging out. I mean, they were not obviously all, hey, let's have, birthday cake or something out here, but it was like, they were just kind of hanging out. It's like, I kind of thought, they'd be more upset. I mean, there are people crying in the parking lot, ready to tear up their own vehicle because of how bad it went down. And, these guys are like, hey, as soon as I get showered and out of here, coach is going to tell us when film is tomorrow and we out. We got to go, meet up with some co-eds a little bit later and have a Saturday night. I mean, it's, at the club. I mean, what I'm saying, that's what people do in college. They go out and meet people they would like to hang out with.
No. But
again, I 100% agree with it. It's like I think I've said this for a while, Ben, BJ. I think fans take it way worse than the players do. Way worse.
Well, I mean, look, when I came from a culture of losing in high school. Let's just call it what it is. Shut up, BJ. I came from a culture of losing. Then I went to a culture of winning in college, right? I left that to go to a culture of losing again in Tennessee, right? And then I leave that to go to Tampa. So I didn't have a lot of winning streaks in my day. But individual players do take things differently. But at the end of the day, what do we expect? Wins and losses, you only know based off the post-game press conferences, right? But the best teams just lose, at a lesser rate than the okay teams. I get that part, but the reason why the young man at Florida State will live on forever, because if there's ever a pitcher that said it's just a game, dog, that's it. Because I get it. Because BJ, would it be okay and acceptable had you won the game? Would it be acceptable had you won the game? No, it's not acceptable because you lost. It's not acceptable because of who you lost to. If that's Clemson, is it okay for him to ask her for her hand in marriage? And the answer is yes and no. Yes to him and no to you. We are good at shaping narratives. We are good at pushing narratives. The problem is we do not control the narratives. These 17 to 21, 24-year-olds keep doing what you're doing. I saw Florida one time get the doors blown off by them by LSU, and everybody at the club had on shirts and ties saying, listen, man, let's celebrate. What? They said, we celebrate the fact that, man, we could have won. You're celebrating almost. Yes, we could have beat those guys, man. So hey, it happens. We'll never understand, and we are speaking from where we are in life, not where they are in life.
Yeah. I mean, Kevin, you're talking about 18 to 24-year-olds. Yeah. So no, Ben, I mean, good perspective, but it is amazing, like with the Florida State thing, how quickly it goes from the worst loss ever to, we're going to get Urban Meyer or Bob Stoops, or could we get Dion, or could we get, could you get Nick Saban to come to Tallahassee? It's crazy.
Nick Saban in Tallahassee. We got more to come here on 3 and Out. Jamie Bradford of the JB and Goldwater Show will join us when we return. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back 3 and Out here on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin Thomas, BJ Bennett, and Ben Troop. Georgia, South Carolina coming up this weekend. And joining us here from the JB and Goldwater show, Jamie Bradford steps in here on 3 and Out. Jamie, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good, guys. How y'all doing?
Hey, we're doing fantastic. Always one of my favorite games to watch just because of the rivalry, the South Carolina-Georgia. I love to go back and forth. And certainly Shane Beamer giving all the kudos to Georgia, saying it's the most talented team that he's seen ever assembled at Georgia. So high praise there on the Bulldogs before the showdown here this weekend.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, he's got some of the Lou Holtz in him, doesn't he? He certainly has given a bunch of credit to every opponent thus far on the schedule, Eastern Illinois, East Carolina, and Georgia. And I know that he knows some of the talent on that roster anyways from his time there, and he knows Kirby. But he might not be too far off. They're a very talented football team, and this is quite a test this weekend for the Gamecocks.
What have you seen from Zeb Nolan? Obviously, one of the stories of the year in college football, a couple of games in. And as an Oconee County native, what's Saturday going to be like for him?
You know, I think on a personal level, it's going to be really neat for him. I don't know that he could have dreamed of this scenario a little over a month ago. From the game standpoint, it's going to be the most difficult task he's ever had in his life. That's for sure. Best defense he's ever seen, and probably most of the guys on this team at South Carolina have ever seen. But you know, look, here's the thing with Zeb Nolan. It is an incredible story. He knows that playbook inside and out. I was talking with a source of mine in the program just yesterday, as a matter of fact, about that exact thing. I mean, he gets it. He understands it. He helped write the playbook. He can see it. He can draw it up. But, I mean, as y'all know, Ben, you can attest to this as much as anybody, right? When you get out there, a little bit different sometimes, and your mind might be going a little bit faster or a little bit slower even at times than it needs to. So, he's got to make some adjustments. I know that Coach Satterfield has talked about making some adjustments up at the line of scrimmage that he's kind of missed on a few times here and there. But right now, he's the path of least resistance for this football team. I'm really doubtful that Luke Doty plays in the game this weekend. And if he does, maybe not much. And those other guys, Jason Brown, he's not ready for this level. And Colton Gauthier is really young, and he's not ready either. So, this is the guy that they're going to have to run with, and they're going to have to minimize mistakes and see what happens from there.
Jamie, obviously in 2019, I mean, it's a different South Carolina team that, you know, goes to Georgia and comes out with a big win. It was because of defense. Obviously, for South Carolina to have any chance to stay in this game is going to have to be led by the defense. Is this Gamecock defense good enough to kind of stand up for 4 quarters to make this Georgia offense beat them?
You know, I think they are. I'm probably one of the few people out there that's saying things like this, but, you know, just watching these guys, and I get it. I know who they've played, East Carolina and Eastern Illinois. That's not top-notch competition. This weekend certainly is. So we're going to find out. But they're playing faster. They're tackling. They communicate better. And I think that the one word that has been the most interesting to me since spring is they attack. But they attack under control. And those guys, they understand a little bit more of what's going on out there and who's doing what and things like that. And obviously that comes down to communication. So I think this defense has a chance to give them a chance, maybe by virtue of a turnover or two. The problem is going to be, what do you do with it? I mean, are you able to punch that sucker in the end zone? And Jordan, in Georgia, they've got a situation defensively that Carolina had a couple of years ago. Javon Kinlaw, even though Izzy McQuamu got all the headlines from that game with the 3 picks, and one of those he took to the house, Javon Kinlaw caused 2 of those, and he was the difference maker in the game that day. And now they got the tackle, the Davis kid, who's 6'7", 350 over there, and Georgia's got that going for him. So it's that's a big spread at 30. I think this game's going to be a little bit more defensive than that.
And again, you talk about what does South Carolina do with it on offense? How do they attack this Georgia defense, which through 2 games has not allowed a touchdown?
You know what? This is going to sound crazier than all the other stuff I've been spewing at you, but they're going to need to do exactly what Georgia does: run the football. I mean, look, Zeb Nolan is a kid who's capable, and he's a guy who right now again is basically giving them their best chance to win. Okay, that's why he's in there. He's not in there because he's a difference maker or anything like that. This offense was designed based on the legs of Luke Doty and what type of quarterback they want to recruit to that system. They already had one in Luke Doty, and obviously he hasn't been able to play. And so they haven't changed a whole lot out there with Nolan. They've been trying to run the offense. There's other guys that have to play and understand what they're doing too. But here's the problem. We've seen it the last 2 weeks. Everybody's stacking the box and everybody's sending all their guns, right? And so Carolina, they're going to have to run the football. Kevin Harris led the SEC last year in rushing. Secondre White he's a really good football player. And the only reason he didn't play last year is because he couldn't hold on to it. Well, they fixed that problem. And you got Marshawn Lloyd back. We've seen Juju McDowell emerge. Amos is coming back from a hamstring issue. They've got the stable of backs. So I think the question is, how do you try to minimize the number of guys that are in the box? How do you try to get that defense spread out a little bit and get these guys some running room? And maybe they can bust one or two of them. But Carolina, they have got to, with all the struggles they've had the last 2 weeks doing it, they absolutely have to find a way to run the football with the guys that they were expecting to be the strength of the team coming into the year.
How healthy is Kevin Harris, and could this be a game? You mentioned what he did last year, where maybe he gets 20+ carries.
Yeah, he's good to go. As far as I know, he's good to go. I don't know of any soreness or anything like that after the ECU game this past weekend, which obviously was his first action. So this could be the week where he's kind of getting more of the rock, and we'll kind of see. But yeah, he's good to go. And if Kevin Harris, here's my prediction: if Kevin Harris has 20+ carries in this game, then this game's probably a little bit closer than people think it is, or think it should have been.
And Jamie, you mentioned earlier that Shane Beamer got a little loopholes in him when you talk about that mental warfare. But what has been his message to the team? They understand what they up against, but everybody kind of get to show what this what South Carolina fans can look forward to down the line. Doesn't get a bigger test outside of Clemson than Georgia. So what is this message to the team? And if he can find a way to upset Georgia this weekend, I mean, what is that going to do for him for the rest of the year, and what type of enthusiasm does that give the fan base?
Well, I mean, I don't want to lead on that I've been in the locker room or anything like that, so I don't know word for word what he's been saying, but I do know the general message, just again based on a couple of sources that I have, which are pretty good sources. I'll add to that is, let's worry about us. Let's worry about us. Let's worry about us play to play, series to series, half to half, and let's see where we are at the end of this thing. And what does that mean for the rest of the year? Well, to me, what's important this weekend, number one, winning the game. Always. I don't care if you're going up against the Patriots or the Broncos or the Georgia Bulldogs or Eastern Illinois. It doesn't matter. Your goal is to win the game, right? So that's goal one. Goal two, improve, and alongside that, stay healthy, because what comes behind it for South Carolina is going to dictate their season. They've got Kentucky coming to Williams-Brice in week 4, and then you've got Troy, and then you go to Knoxville, and then you've got Vanderbilt. And Kentucky might be the second best team in the SEC East, but they're not unbeatable. And those other 3 teams are very winnable football games for the Gamecocks. So if they can stay healthy and continue to improve, even if they happen to drop the ball game between the hedges this weekend, I think that they'll still feel pretty good about themselves.
Jamie Bradford, JB and Goldwater Show, joining us here on 3 and Out. And obviously, when Spurrier was there, Georgia, South Carolina, really back and forth. Where is South Carolina? I know you talked there. Where is South Carolina in relation to the rest of the East? Are they in contention for 2 right now? I mean, are they chasing Kentucky and Florida? Where do you kind of feel they are early on here in Shane Beamer's tenure?
No, I don't think they're in contention for the East. And I think that Kentucky is a better football team. How much more talented are the Wildcats? I don't know. I don't have that answer. But as a football team, I think they're better. I mean, obviously Mark Stoops has been there a while, and they got a quarterback up there, the Levis kid, who's, I think they finally found a guy who can kind of manage it for them. So that's good. But, I think if you're the Gamecocks right now, you're looking at yourself much more in a line with Tennessee and with Missouri, and trying to figure out, okay, do we have enough to A, get to a bowl game, and B, to try to find a way to finish ahead of those guys. Carolina's not where Vanderbilt is. Vanderbilt's not very good. and they got a ways to go. This defense for South Carolina, I talked a lot about this before the season started, not to be long-winded, but this defense was what was going to carry them through the first half. And it's just a matter of time before they can get that offense kind of clicking. And they're starting to have some guys emerge who are question marks, like Josh Vann, who's always had the talent, but probably needed a different voice, and he's got one in Justin Stepp. So overall, where are they? Yeah, right now they're not in contention for the East, but hey guys, if you beat Georgia, guess what? You're contending for the East, right? So, we'll see what happens this weekend. But I still have Georgia, Florida 1-2 in the East, whatever way that works out, and then Kentucky scratching to get in there somewhere as well.
A lot of talk about what's ahead for South Carolina, Georgia, but going back to Saturday, how big was that win over East Carolina? And I know folks may say it's East Carolina, but when you have a new staff, when you have a young team, when you have injuries, to get the pick six at the end of the second quarter for Parker White to hit the game winner, I mean, how much different would the conversation be right now had South Carolina lost that game to East Carolina over the weekend?
Oh gosh, y'all know as well as I do that it would be a train wreck of a week. All the outside noise. It's so different, right, than how it was when Ben Troop was playing football. I mean, you didn't just pull up your phone and look at Twitter and all that other crap that's out there. It'd be tough. It'd be tough, and it'd be a learning experience for Shane, right, as a head coach, and how he gets his guys through it. But they won, and East Carolina tried to fire every bullet in their gun. Starting with the first play of the game. I mean, it's a heck of a play there to score, and they won the game. And I'll quick example again, not to be too long-winded, but I think where this program is now, from where it was under Coach Muschamp, who, by the way, I immensely respect. It just didn't work out, but let me point you to something that happened that nobody's talked about. It's just a mentality thing. At the end of that first half, you mentioned the Staley pick. That's true, but also with about 20 seconds to go, East Carolina had second down. The Gamecocks stopped them. They had 2 timeouts available. Under the old staff, they would have let that clock run, been happy that they were going into halftime down a touchdown after the pick six. Beamer called timeout. They got a stop on third down. He called timeout again, and he sent the punt team after him, and they almost blocked that punt. They missed it by a foot. Ultimately, nothing happened. Josh Vann caught the punt, and time ran out, and they went into halftime down a touchdown anyways. But that attack mentality of we're going to utilize every second that we have to try to score or to try to make something happen, that's different. And that's happening in practice. That's happening in the classroom. It's happening everywhere on the football team. And obviously it's translated to the field. One day they're going to that mentality is going to create a big play that's going to be the difference in a ball game, and people will start to notice it.
Jamie Bradford, JB and Goldwater Show, our guest here on 3 and Out. Jamie, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
You guys take care. Have a great week.
Will do. Jamie Bradford joining us here on 3 and Out as Georgia and South Carolina squaring off Saturday night between the hedges in Athens. This is 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Great to be here with you on this Wednesday. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. Appreciate Jamie Bradford joining us here on the program as South Carolina and Georgia coming up this weekend, and certainly a tall task, but a rivalry game that, again, BJ, if you think back to some of the Mark Richt years, and even with the Spurrier teams at South Carolina, always some good competitive football games. Now, that hasn't necessarily been the case all the time here in the latter couple of years outside of the South Carolina upset, but this has been one since South Carolina has come in the SEC that's been one of the more interesting ones to watch every single time it comes up on the calendar.
Yeah, you've had some crazy games. I mean, you've had some really unique kind of finishes. I mean, you go back to South Carolina blowing Georgia out, not long ago when they had Jadeveon Clowney. You go back to, like you said, the Israel Mukwamu game, and Jamie obviously right, Javon Kinlaw just making huge plays in that one. Go ahead.
Didn't the David Pollock strip sack happen against South Carolina?
Yep.
Of the strip touchdown?
No, BJ and Kevin, who cares? Earlier today, I told y'all that when I played at Tennessee, that Tennessee said sick 'em, Smokey. Kevin called his sister to clarify that they didn't say it. I was there. And you know who I called? I called Troy Fleming, who grew up in Tennessee, went to Battleground Academy in Franklin, went to Tennessee and blocked for Travis Henry and Jamal Lewis. I texted him and he said, quote, yes, at Tennessee, they indeed say sick 'em, Smokey. So put that in your pipe and smoke it.
So basically, at the end of the day, we both have a source that says it did and didn't happen all at the same time.
Here's the thought. Hold on. So you're going to believe a player or a person that worked there?
She worked in the athletic department. I think she would know what they would say on game day.
Now, two people.
And her response was a pretty emphatic no, they don't say
But
that.
I was there, and I heard it, and he was there.
Is there some hillbilly that may have yelled that? I think maybe.
No. If the hillbilly just happened to be the voice of the Vols, that would be the hillbilly, because that's who said it. He said it on the loudspeaker. Sick 'em, Smokey, and quote, Smokey is on the prowl.
All right, well, through all that, how do Georgia fans feel about that, if that indeed does? Because isn't it sick 'em dogs? Now it's sick 'em Smokey, and Ben, as you said, hold on, is it Smokey like growling over the loudspeaker?
Trademark on the word sick 'em?
Pretty sure. What? Baylor is sick 'em Bears?
I'm just saying.
Is that what Bears do?
If somebody got a sick of bear on, you better be, you about to be sick to your stomach because you're going to rip it out. I'm just saying.
Does a bear even know what that means? A dog does. You can train a dog to know what that means.
Kevin loves bulldogs.
A bear, you could just, put some camping food out there and it'll go tear it up. We'll come back. Take three right around the corner. BJ's confused. We'll try to clarify that in hour two. Take three around the corner. It's 3 and Out here on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you here, 3 and Out. Hour 2, we'll hear from Corey Woodruff of the Falcoholic. We'll talk Falcons and Bucks coming up here in just a little bit, but it is 4 o'clock. Let's take 3 here on 3 and Out. Made Christian do it too quickly today. I know. It's fine. Here we go. Take 1. Is the Penn State whiteout game the best atmosphere in college football? Penn State whitening it out for Auburn this weekend.
It's up there. It's up there. And looking forward to game day and that atmosphere. It's definitely one that's in the conversation. I think I also have a hard time comparing atmospheres when I haven't been to a game at that location, because my first thought when I read the question was it's got to be a Saturday night at LSU. And I've never had the chance to go to a home game at LSU, but a lot of people that I've talked to who have been to multiple venues have said that LSU at night, a Saturday night in LSU, is about as intimidating and about as loud and just rowdy as it gets. In terms of places that I've been, I think Auburn's really cool. I think Clemson, obviously we talked about that last week with the running down the hill, is really cool. Florida State with the entrance is really cool. But I think maybe Christian said this last week too. South Carolina, don't sleep on South Carolina, okay? There's a lot of great atmospheres in the SEC. South Carolina, when they serve Big Spur and they got cocky and playing 2001. So South Carolina is one of the best atmospheres I've ever seen.
The law offices of BJ Bennett. Why give an answer when I can give you 7? Go ahead, Ben.
Oh man, I mean,
I thought he said it's up there, and then never said it was number 1.
Look, I highly respect PJ and PJ. We are zombie. Listen, what is it? Zombie Nation or whatever it is, and everybody's going crazy. You got a bunch of cats from Pennsylvania wearing all white, and all of a sudden, Zombie Nation going. They're getting ready to go crazy. And this is what they like. Listen, you're not allowed to wear anything but white. If you come in here trying to, I'm gonna make a statement. I'm gonna wear all blue. Get out. I think the fact that everybody is in unison, the fact that everybody understands this is what we're doing, night game, I understand. Listen, I love certain traditions too. One tradition I love, even though it might be a little quirky. I'm not going to say what it is. Shut up, BJ. You know what I'm talking about.
Sick 'em smoky.
Sick 'em smoking. Ooh, smokers on the prowl. No, I'm gonna go with Penn State because I'm gonna go because obviously, I mean, I think the jump around is. I think it's very, very underrated. I love to jump around, but yes, if I had to pick one, because they understand what it is. You don't come into the stadium not understanding what it is. There ain't no, wait a minute, why is everybody wearing all white? No, you got the memo. You got the mass email. So yeah, I can say the Penn State because you got to have something that you're known for outside of just the brand of football. See, I can say it might be the best atmosphere.
Yeah, big game atmosphere, LSU at night. I would say that's probably right up there at my number 1. But Penn State is really cool. I think it's just a coolness factor. You're in the mountains of Pennsylvania, and as Ben said, whatever, there are mountains around the valley. In order to have a valley, you have mountains around you. There you go. But everybody wearing, as Ben said, it's not just like, hey, 7 or 8 sections are in all white. Like the whole stadium is into it. And again, big game atmosphere. It's right up there. But I would say LSU night game when the Tiger fans have had all day to party and fuel up for the game. One of the best ones out there, the best one out there. All right, take 2. Should college football have an enforced depth chart and injury report like the NFL? Boy, this is a pet peeve of Christian Gokel.
I don't think so. To me, the circumstances are different. And I know in terms of kind of the practicality of high-profile college athletics, a lot of it's like pro football. But when you're an NFL player, that's your job. That's the totality of what you do. And the organization, Ben, when you play for the Tennessee Titans, that's what's going on. Prepping for, playing for, promoting football, updating information, etc. I think when you're talking about college athletics, and again, the practicality of this argument, I understand, but in theory, it's still non-professional to a certain extent in whatever way you define this, amateur athletics. And I think you're talking about student athletes who aren't just football players, but are also students. And that's a pretty considerable responsibility to have to deal with. And I think when you start kind of professionalizing every single aspect of college football, I don't think that's fair because I think they're different. And I think with the NFL, you're talking about full-grown adults, you know, in their medical and injury situation. I think with, you know, college athletics and teenagers in some respects, it's okay to be, you know, a little less up to the minute with, you know, every single thing that's happening medically in terms of the information being available to everybody. And I just think there's a lot more fluidity in college rosters as well. Whereas in the National Football League, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, but for the most part, you have a pretty good feel throughout the year, whether it's game 1, game 8, or game 16, as to who your quarterback is, who your number 1 running back is, who your 3 linebackers are. In college, it's a lot more fluid, and you have dramatic change sometimes from week to week. So I think, you know, at the NFL level, it's one thing, but I don't think you need it in college football. It's a different sport.
I beg to differ so much from a person that had to play the game, and you got to understand. Let me tell you something. I don't need to be in the middle when it comes to who's going to play and who's not going to play. When I was at Florida, they had a list to know, like, if it's a home game and you're not going to be, like, you know, on the bus, that means you got to stay in your dorm room, get up and walk through all those fans to make it to the stadium. You don't even get to go to the hotel. There is nothing more prestigious than knowing where you stand on a football team.
Hold on, Ben. Ben, I'm not talking about the players don't know. I'm saying I don't think it has to be released to the public.
Yeah, but what? Listen, we release everything else. It's not that big of a deal. It's really not that big of a deal. You're not playing mind games with the other team. Just put it out. Just put it out. Is it college football, the minor leagues, or NFL? It's the breeding ground for the next great players in the NFL. And it's what it says to your players. But put it out. This is who on the injury report. Because another thing is too, I mean, sometimes you put it out because what if I am the third tight end and I don't know the second tight end is not playing because he practiced all week? I don't know he walked into the training room.
No, but dude, in the lot. I want to be clear here. I'm not saying you don't tell your own players. I'm saying there's a difference in having that information internally versus there being a mandate that you have to tell Kevin Thomas or you have to tell BJ Bennett or Ben Troop or put it out on a message board or whatever. Obviously, that information is vitally important inside the program, of course. I'm saying, like in the NFL, I don't think it has to be, hey, Wake Forest or Georgia Tech, you better give us your updated depth chart by Thursday afternoon at 3:00, or you better tell us, you know, how the ankle of the backup offensive lineman is doing. I don't necessarily think that has to be mandated for all public consumption.
Everything else is for public consumption. Every single thing college football does is for public consumption. I mean, you live streaming, spring games now and all these. It's fine. Listen, don't make something that's not a big deal a big deal. Like that is not a big deal. Now, do you need to know, everybody's personal information? No. Do you know, what people are dealing with away from football? No. Like, just put it out. We make it in a big deal. These coaches, they want it. Basically, this comes down to these coaches don't like, having things that are not a part of or not something they came up with. They have to be mandated to do it. Put the freaking thing out. I know that Georgia Tech don't do the above the line thing no more, which I still don't even know what that was.
Yeah, they do it. They do it.
Oh, they still do the above the line? The ATL above the line?
Yep.
Listen, put it. Oh, well, I'm sorry. Well, my bad, Jeff Collins. I apologize. But I'm just saying it's not. I am 4-0 the culture. I mean, I'm just saying it's 4-0 for the culture. We will see. But no, put it out. It's not that big of a thing because the more they say they're not going to do it, the NCAA, the little power it does have, they will end up mandated so everybody has to do it.
Look, I think it's, and I mentioned this to Christian, this is a pet peeve of his because I've said I feel like more teams are doing it because they can. They don't have to. But NC State earlier this year, when South Florida said they weren't going to do a depth chart, they said, fine, we're not going to do it either. We're not going to do it all season long. I think you're seeing more teams go to either not doing it or like a Jeff Collins, Georgia Tech style, where they just simply say, these are the guys that are going to play. Have at it. And again, I don't have a problem with it either way because I think that is something, and Ben, maybe you've been in the locker room. I think that is something that fans get so carried away with, like, oh, so-and-so is going to start. I mean, it's a football game. That's only good for the first play. And then the coach says, get in there, and all of a sudden the guy who was at the starter is out there on play number 2, or you start in a different formation, and technically you didn't start because we were in 2 wides instead of 3 wides, and now we have an extra. So I kind of think that stuff gets overblown by the fans who want to consume it, and I honestly don't think it's that big a deal. Just my 2 cents. Christian's got steam coming out of his ears because of that.
Christian's gonna listen. we're going to get a breaking news. Christian Gokel has been hired on the staff of UGA, and he's in charge of
not releasing the depth chart.
No. He is the logistics, liaison, meaning I get to put out what I want to put out, how I want to put it out.
Kirby Smart's just going to come out with the DGD list, and that's going to be it. That's all it is.
Of course. I mean, we're petty. We're the pettiest people out there. We know we're petty. When people go, listen, unsportsmanlike conduct is how you really look at it. I mean, no. This is what it be. Is your quarterback hurt, Kirby? Is your quarterback hurt? I mean, I'm asking about yours.
Yep. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. You'll know who's running
Dan
out
Mullen
there
said that.
when they run out there.
What about Anthony Richardson? Oh, he's going to play. Okay, what does that mean? He's going to play. All right. The end. Speaking of things that are out there in college football per recruiting analytics on Twitter, Brock Bowers, tight end at Georgia, reached the second fastest max speed this past weekend, hitting 21.9 miles per hour on his long touchdown catch. The other four of the top five are two running backs, a quarterback, and a wide receiver. So you have a big man in the top two. How absurd is that?
Very impressive, and he's been a great playmaker. I mean, you look at his production when we were talking about all the names to watch and, who could put up big numbers. I don't think we mentioned him, and he's been right there. And, yeah, the athleticism, the playmaking ability. I mean, but it's also been, you've talked about this, just the continued sort of evolution of the tight end position. I mean, these guys are big-time athletes. You're talking about offenses that are run through tight ends, and even if it's not for a full game, for stretches of the game where the tight end is sort of the catalyst, and you see it, of course, in the National Football League with superstar tight ends everywhere. But yeah, very, very impressive.
I appreciate Brock for going out there. Listen, Brock is doing what he's supposed to do from a standpoint of showing people that the tight end position, it's been a premier position, but it takes guys having to run, 21.9 miles per hour, running 4.41s and 40s to get the attention that it is garnered. I mean, Brock Bowers, 21.9. My goodness. I mean, and that's with shoulder pads on. That's with the helmet. That's that's putting them up and putting them down. Hey, that's very, very, very impressive. But I'm gonna need him to calm that down with the Georgia game, with the Florida game, vastly approached. But no,
do you know how fast in miles per hour you ever ran? Did anybody tell you that?
I do not. I'm not gonna listen. No. I'm not gonna do.
Ben's
that.
Like, get me at my prime.
Listen, 21.9. I'm not gonna say I was ever at 21.9, but maybe like, well, I don't know, 18, 19, maybe. But 21.9, that's elite status. That's another level. And once again, I'm happy. Kevin and BJ, they say per recruiting analytics. So if you want to be a Division I tight end, that's another thing you got to do. Can you run 21.9 miles per hour? Wow.
The fastest who got? Tyreek Hill was 21.6, 20.76 in the playoffs. Tyreek Hill and Brock Bowers ran faster than that. Impressive. Very impressive for a big man. Again,
you know who don't like that? Oh, Darnell Washington.
Yeah.
Hey, man, I don't need you running on 21, almost 22 miles an hour when I ain't playing. But, hey, man, shout out to that young man, picking him up and putting him down. 6'4", 240, getting in there.
I would like to say it's like supremely impressive, and it is, but like we see guys more and more. You're seeing like guys who are ridiculously big, like tight ends, do this. And the fact that he's doing it is ahead of the curve. But like every year you see some freak athletes like, I can't believe big man, like you. Yeah, Kyle Pitts last year. But even then, like people don't realize you see guys who are like offensive linemen now who are like 305 pounds, putting down like 4.9s and stuff in the 40. Like, man, he's slow. No, you don't like he's 6'4", 300 plus pounds. And he just ran a sub-5. That is insanity. Like that, and I think we're seeing that more and more.
That's what separates. That's what separates the good from the great. When you talk about breaking down things like the average human being couldn't even fathom, let alone do. And he's doing it in the heat of a play. Like I got to get my assignment. I got to get open. I got to catch the rock. Then get in that 21.9. Shout out to them tight ends, the best athletes in the land. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I could do 21.9 on a moped. Trying to look at
BJ's face.
I didn't say I could. I said I could do it on a
Kevin,
moped.
in your prime though.
In my prime, I still would have needed a jetpack. That's all I'm going to say. Not being athletically arrogant with my speed. I've never had speed at all. That's take 3. We do it every day at this time. We'll come back. More to come here on 3 and Out, including Corey Woodruff. The Falcoholic will join us in about 20 minutes talking Falcons and Bucks here on 3 and Out on this Wednesday afternoon.
Welcome back to 3 and Out. I am Ben Troop. That is BJ Bennett, and the man with the Starburst purple looking shirt on. If you can see him, that is Kevin. You know you can have whatever you like, Thomas.
There are no purple Starburst.
There are purple Starburst now because I already said it. You're like sick of smoking. You learned a lot today that you didn't know before you got here today.
Can you find if there are purple star? I don't think there are.
Oh yeah, he's on it right. You better hope it ain't, because there's a lot of.
I don't think there is, but maybe there's a new variety. I don't know.
There could be, but I know there's the yellow one, the red one, the pink one. I don't think there.
The pink one is the only one that matters.
Oh my goodness! Apparently there is. No, wait. Whoa. Go back. No. Go back. What did that say?
You got the orange.
Hey. Oh no, that's something that's not in the. Yeah, we won't talk about that one. Is there? I think there's a. It might be infused with something. Is there? It doesn't appear that there is. Is there? Okay. There is a purple star. Apparently, you have to buy it. You can only a special order it. Apparently.
Well, there it is.
All right. Well, we learned.
I'm 2 for 2 today.
Actually, the one picture down here says is blackberry.
Okay.
If I'm reading it correctly, but anyways, that's not what we were going to talk about here at this segment. Ben just making up stuff that I thought was not true, so we had to find that there were purple Starbursts out there. No, my question was we just talked about in take 3 with Penn State and the whiteout, and why that it appears the collegiate atmosphere, it matters more than in the National Football League. You saw the Giants at home this week, usually pretty radical. They lost to the Broncos. Why does it matter more in college where the atmosphere is versus the NFL, where you have some great fan bases? Doesn't seem to play as big a role
because you got real versus fake. I'm gonna say it right now. No. It's real versus fake, and I'm happy you said that. If you are a Dallas Cowboy fan, you are fake as all get out. I'm gonna tell you. No. That stuff is fake because the whole thing about it is college is not predicated on how good or bad your team is. You show up and you got traditions no matter what. You show up more when they losing when they winning. Dallas, you think, oh man, y'all are talking all that trash in the first 8 games of the season, and once you realize it's gonna be like every other season since the 90s, it become, well, man, I mean, that game is really good. So it's fake. And I know I'm gonna have a bunch of Dallas Cowboy fans coming at me. I don't care. It comes down to, listen, one takes pride in their team no matter what. The only thing, everybody else in the NFL is front running. It really, really is. I mean, I went to school with a guy, I went to college with a guy named Kelvin Kite, played with him. He was in the NFL, didn't even know he was a Raiders fan. He's all at the Raiders stadium. I said, boy, you a Raiders fan? Like, yeah, lies. You ain't no Raiders fan. So that's what I'm saying. Too many bandwagon fans and too many fair weather fans in the NFL. You are loyal in college football, no matter what. So this is real versus the fake. And if you are an NFL fan and you are only like y'all, you live in South Georgia and you a Seattle Seahawks fan, you are a liar. You do not root for them. So give me
they
real
can root for
fake.
DJ Dallas.
No.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
I'm not talking about for 2020. I'm talking about a jersey, BJ, that just came out the pack. You can smell how new it is. That Russell Westbrook, you mean Russell Wilson? Yeah, that's what I meant. No, you're not a fan. So give me real versus now. If you're a Jaguars fan, I'm not talking to you because may God help you.
I don't know if there is a home field advantage for you.
Okay. But it is dramatic though, because like in the pros, it seems like it has no influence. And in the college ranks, I mean, we mentioned this at the start of the show, right? South Carolina is playing at Georgia. Georgia is a 32-point favorite. If that game was in Columbia, it would probably be half that. The line would probably be half that. And it's amazing. I mean, we were talking about some of the games already you've seen in college football and the results. And this is my theory, Ben. I understand what, okay, I hear you. But is it just, and you can speak to this, I mean, you're inexperienced. You're young when you play in college. I mean, if you're 19 years old and you've maybe only done this a couple of times and you look up and there's 100,000 people and everybody's talking about you on TV and people are yelling at you and it's loud and you're still kind of getting comfortable with playing football at that high of a level. And I think younger teams are more susceptible to, the loud crowd. Whereas in the pros, man, this is what you do every single day. And you did the whole college thing for 3 or 4 years. You're accustomed to it. So I think it's just age and experience, and the younger you are, the less experience you have, the more impact the atmosphere has on you. And when you're 27, 28 years old and you've done it, I mean, is that fair, Ben?
It is, but I think it's pride and prestige versus perception. Like when you in college, you take pride in your teams. It's prestigious. Like you go back and forth with other fan bases because you're trying to tell them what they lack and what you have, with your particular college or university. There is a perception that just because the pros is the highest level, that it is better. That is not true. Think about this, and BJ, I said this. If college played on the same day as the pros, how many viewers would the pros get? They wouldn't get the same viewership. That's why. And the thing about college, there are way more games on Saturday than it is on Sunday. Way more, and you are still tuning in. Are you really getting up for the Cardinals versus the Titans? No, you're really not. It's just what else do you got? It's what else do you. So for me, I think pride and prestige is college and tradition. In the NFL, you got a bunch of slot fillers. You got a bunch of teams that are irrelevant. The most irrelevant, probably, conference in football is the AFC South. No one cares about the Titans. No one cares about the Texans. No one cares about the Colts. And no one cares about the Jags. Not for real. One team has to put swimming pools in his stadium. The other team in Indy, they have to pump crowd noise. The Titans, I played with the Titans. The Titans switch up the name of their stadium every other year. They switch up stadiums like Vanderbilt switch up head coaches. You don't even know what to call the freaking stadium. It used to, when I was there, it went from the Coliseum to LP Field, and it's been 10 different things since. So basically, the stadium is going to the highest bidder. Do colleges do that? Nope. Whatever the name of the stadium is, that's when it might be the name of the stadium and so-and-so field or whatever, but they ain't switching up. Like I said, pride, prestige, tradition versus perception. So the NFL, it is fake, and more fake. So for me, yes. I mean, I just think that when you
hold on a second. There aren't real so because you have a great perspective on this. So you don't have fans of NFL teams who love their team the way a passionate Bulldog fan loves Georgia football.
When I played for the Titans and we would play Peyton Manning, Tennessee Titan fans are rooting for Peyton Manning because he played for the Vols. But what about the Steelers, the Raiders, the Steelers have tradition. I get that. I get that part. Yeah, the Steelers got real fans.
The Eagles. I mean, I think their fan base.
The Eagles. Do the Jazz got real fans? No. Not only do the Chargers not have real fans, they're the other team in LA. They're the LA Chargers because San Diego told them to get the hell out. I'm just saying, like at the end of the day, we're talking about real. Listen, if you are a Georgia fan, you grew up being one. You don't know how to be nothing else. If you would ask a Georgia fan, listen, if a judge told a Georgia fan you got to root for Georgia Tech or you got to root for Florida, they say, give me the prison time. I'm not doing it. That's what I'm talking about. There was a kid at a game that when Kansas City was playing the Ravens, he had on the Ravens jersey. And when the Ravens started losing, he took the Ravens jersey off and he had on a Patrick Mahomes jersey.
Okay, but hold on, because Kevin talks about this all the time. I don't want to get clarity. What about those who, may or may not like Georgia in football and maybe Duke or North Carolina or Kentucky in basketball?
Whoa. Well, that's a real Georgia fan only roots for the Dogs during football season. Like anybody that is caught rooting for them during basketball season, they beat them up. They're like, what are you doing? We don't do that. I'm serious. Like if a Georgia, listen, there's a guy that's very, very, familiar with the show. I'm not going to call his name out. He roots for the Dogs. He also roots for the Yankees. He also roots for Duke in basketball. It happens. But at the same time, BJ, the reason why they don't root for the Dogs in basketball, because what do the Dogs do? The Dogs had Anthony Edwards and Dominique Wilkins, and that's it. So it ain't much to go off of. But I'm just saying, if you
got Jonas and Jarvis Hayes, come on.
If but in all seriousness, if you are a college fan, it's not based on the record. In your mind, you have to defend the honor of your team, especially against opposing fan bases. In the NFL, it doesn't matter. You're just watching it because there is nothing else on TV to do it. When you play Thursday night, Saturday night, Thanksgiving, Saturday night, the NFL, it just is what it is. I mean, you know how it's going to end, but in my mind, I played in the NFL, and I'm just saying, me, Albert Haynesworth, Troy Fleming, we went to a high school game, and the kid asked for an autograph, and me and Troy gave him an autograph, and then Albert Hainsworth said, "Sorry, kid, I'm busy right now." And the kid said, "You said no to a fan. That's why you guys suck anyway." So I'm just saying, it's like, listen, there is no loyalty. There is no loyalty, BJ. And BJ, I feel sorry for you because I root for the Titans and you root for the Jags. I mean, if we were a number, we would be the number 100 because both our teams are zeros, and you know it is. You know it is. And I love the Titans, but hey, man, would I root for the Titans if I didn't get drafted by them? Absolutely not.
Wow.
But and so the Titans, the Raiders, the Bucks, and the Falcons.
I had no idea I was going to get Ben this fired up.
I'm sorry. I'm just saying. I don't want to hear that
but
college versus pro stuff. That's laughable.
Well, there you go. We'll see if the Falcons can defend their own honor this week against the Bucks. We'll chat with Corey Woodruff about that from the Falcoholic next year on 3 and Out. Good to have you back here, 3 and Out on this Wednesday. Falcons and Bucks coming up this weekend after a tough performance by Atlanta in Week 1. Corey Woodruff, the Falcoholic, joins us here on 3 and Out. Corey, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, guys. Good to be here.
Hey, appreciate you coming on. Obviously, tough way to start the season last week. Doesn't get any easier with Tom Brady and the Bucks. Most notably, the offensive line had its struggles. What have the Falcons done this week to try to correct that as best they can?
Well, they signed a couple of free agents to the practice squad, one of them being Danny Isadora, a veteran guard. But it seems right now like they probably will keep things the way they were. I know folks may not be excited at the idea of Jalen Mayfield playing again at left guard, but I imagine he'll at least get some snaps as they continue to try to figure out who to play at that spot.
How do you offset some of the inexperience and struggles up front with play calling? Because obviously you got to do better than 6 points. You got to get in the end zone. What can they do to sort of hide, I guess, some of their struggles up front?
Well, it's interesting. They've also got a brand new play caller who's never a head coach before. So there's a lot of newness on both sides. And I think that had a guy who had been a head coach before, it might be a little easier to make that transition with younger players. But it just feels like right now, with all the newness just all around the team, that all of that growing on the spot's not going to happen just on the field, but on the sideline too.
And Corey, I mean, even sticking with this offense, I mean, are they trying to go for more balance? I understand that, you know, with a retooled offensive line, it's going to go through some growing pains when they didn't really play it all in the offseason. But what's the focus of this offense? Is it more run heavy to open up the pass, or is it trying to be more 50-50?
It seems like they're going for a balanced approach, and one of the things that Arthur Smith has really talked about wanting to do is not giving up on the run later in the game, even if you're down. He doesn't want to go pass crazy like you may have seen last year Dirk Cutter do at many points in the game, even though his runs were always very strangely called. It was a very balanced game. I think that Smith would have gotten to that passing game a bit sooner, but I think the loss of Julio Jones is causing Matt Ryan maybe be a little bit more gun shy in the passing game as he gets used to not having his favorite target. So I think that there's a lot working there that would make them want to run the ball a bit more than we might normally see.
And I know Arthur Smith had his own kind of way of doing things in the preseason, but has he said anything about the decision to not play a lot of the key guys in the preseason on offense, and then you kind of come out and just put up a 6-point effort there in week number 1?
It's interesting. I don't know if he said a ton post-game about that, but he seemed like he defended the move. That, you know, I think that he saw so many injuries take place. And I think one thing to remember is that, you know, while we had a much more normal offseason than we had in 2020, it still wasn't 100% how things were before the pandemic. So I'm guessing that since he's brand new, there's so many newness going on that just getting a healthy team to the field, which they by and large have done, was probably worth it in their eyes. But I think the downside, obviously, is that when you don't get those reps in, it may take a little bit longer during the regular season to kind of get in rhythm.
Do the Falcons need to make more of a concerted effort to get the ball to Kyle Pitts this weekend?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's just a certain point where I know it's disappointing not to see him get those big targets in week 1, but I think especially in that Bucks system that they have on defense, like they're gonna have to throw more, because it's going to be harder and harder to run the ball against the Bucks front seven. I mean, it's one of the best front sevens in football. Getting Kyle Pitts loose, you know, after a pretty quiet week 1, I think will, one, take some of the pressure off them from the fans to see that guy who they took over taking a quarterback like Justin Fields. But it'll also, I think, match a bit better for what the Bucks do on defense, since as talented as that whole Bucks team is, it's going to be especially hard to run the ball.
Defense had its struggles all day long. I mean, couldn't get a consistent pass rush, couldn't stop the run, wasn't really gelling in the defensive secondary. What do they have to improve on the most with a Tampa Bay team that's going to try to expose everything they don't do well?
Well, I think you put it well. They're going to try to expose everything they don't do well. The whole defense has to be better, but I think especially the coverage game has to be a lot better, because I feel like up front, you know where the talent deficiencies are. The The secondary, though, it's just such a strange kind of assortment of people. Like AJ Terrell is really the only guy outside of maybe Isaiah Oliver who we've seen play in this team before in this system. I actually kind of liked what Fabian Moreau did last week. I actually thought he played pretty well for his first game in the uniform. But obviously, Falcons might get away with shutting down that Bucs rushing attack with Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones, but with Brady, you can't make mistakes. Like they can't have any sort of lapses in coverage because he'll just gash them. So I think it's going to be huge for this Falcons team to really have a much better game against the pass than they did last week. If they don't, then they're probably staring at a 0-2 record.
And Corey, this is obviously a tough week to try to break into the win column against the defending champs and Tom Brady. But as you mentioned, defensively, how have they been? I think Jalen Hurts was making some throws on him. You can only imagine, I guess, what Tom Brady's going to do. How do they kind of gradually work that in the right direction now if you're Atlanta? Because I know, last couple of coaches have been defensive guys, and they've been down near the bottom of the league. And I think a lot of people look at the weapons on offense, and you say this defense doesn't need to be one of the number 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5 defenses in the league. They just can't be one of the worst. How far do they have to go to kind of get themselves into a middle of the pack defense around the league?
Well, I think it helps to have someone like Dean Pease calling the plays. No matter how the talent is on the field, they still have a guy running the defense who knows what he's doing, and he's going to be someone who has coached against Brady before. He knows what Brady's ticks are. Jalen Hurts probably presented them a different challenge last week since he really didn't have that much film out, but obviously Brady's got as much film out of anybody in the league right now. They know what he's going to do, and he's going to do it well. So I think that, for them to get to being like a middle-of-the-road defense, they need to maximize the talent and try to continue to play more cohesively. But at the same time, they need to have also an offense that's going to be able to run the clock out. And last week, after the offense really started to sputter, it put the defense on the field way too much against a very mobile, effective quarterback. So I think the defense is going to need some help from the offense to take that pressure off. Because if you're expecting that top 5 in offense to really show up, they've got to do much more than it last week.
Do you think the best chance for the Falcons to have some defensive success is to try to blitz Brady and get after him, or do you think it's to sit back and just make Tom Brady kind of complete 5 to 7 yard passes up the field?
I think it's going to be what you said with the blitzing approach. I mean, that's how they got pressure on him during the Super Bowl all those years ago. Grady Jarrett obviously had such a huge game there until, things went in the wrong direction. But you have to blitz. I mean, the best way you beat Tom Brady is to get him on the ground. I think that if they try to let him have too much time in the pocket and just get those intermediate passes going, then it's just gonna be death by 1,000 paper cuts. So I think the best plan for them, Dean Pease loves the blitz, and we saw that last week, but with a very lackluster group of pass rushers, he's just going to have to do everything he can to get pressure. Otherwise, I think the Bucs are going to find a lot of success.
A guy that really, struggles a lot when having to get off the block is a guy in Deion Jones. How much is he kind of like not benefiting from the fact you got 4 guys up front, even if Grady Jarrett is top 10 at his position? How much is he not benefiting from the fact that he can't really be himself to be able to run around, make plays, get out in the passing game and make plays? Because he's spending so much energy trying to get off these guards and these centers, seemingly putting their hands on them every play in the run game.
Yeah, I agree. I think Deion Jones thrives when he's got that help up front that allows him to be that roaming enforcer that you need him to be. Some linebackers excel in that exact system, and they can't do a ton when they're getting those guards when they pull. So I think that it's going to be much more advantageous for them to get that protection going. For really, it's hard to think of defensive protection since you're trying to attack the pass and the run, but they are trying to protect Deion Jones. They're trying to protect him to be able to make those plays in the middle of the field. So I do think they're going to have to scheme a lot more to make sure that the really good players they do have, like Jones, can do the work they can.
Corey Woodruff, the Falcoholic, our guest here on 3 and Out. Corey, really appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Hey, thank you, guys. I enjoyed it.
Appreciate it. Corey Woodruff, the Falcoholic, and again, the GOAT on the docket this week. I know Arthur Smith trying to get win number 1 as a head coach. There might be easier weeks to do that than the defending champs with Tom Brady. It's really, to me, going to take a much improved effort offensively and defensively if the Falcons are going to do it this weekend.
Yeah, and I agree. You're probably going to have to blitz Brady and just kind of deal with it. That's your best chance. But offensively, I mean, what do you do to kind of get this thing going? I mean, Ben, would it benefit Kyle Pitts to get him some easy catches early? Do you try to get it out to Ridley, or do you try to run the football some, like Corey talked about? How do you get this thing going?
For me, I think it's going to be the quick passing game. 3-step drop, trying to get the ball out of Matty Ice's hands early because you want to keep him bigger than Kyle Pitts and really those guys. You want to make sure that a guy like Matty Ice, he's staying clean because we forget. I mean, Shaq Barrett, JPP, Vita Vea, and those guys, Dominican Sue and those guys, they can get after anybody. You saw what they was able to do, in the Super Bowl against a guy like Patrick Mahomes, who's really, really good, making plays outside the pocket. So the intermediate passing game, quick game, the intermediate passing game, Mike Davis, Cadell Patterson, those guys gotta be factors, but can't be scared now. The season is here. The true test for every team is what you do on Sunday. It's always good when you're going up against a familiar foe within the division. It's not going to be easy. No game is easy when you look at how much they struggle. But even if they do find a way to get the ball, staying ahead of schedule, getting in the end zone, it's not so much Tom Brady. It's this freaking defense. You're gonna have to find a way. You're gonna have to find a way, to make sure, it's gonna be something to where, BJ and Kevin, that sometimes it's the basics. Blitzing and all that kind of stuff didn't work against Jalen Hurts. What you think he's going to do against Tom Brady? Find a way to get the ball in the end zone, to make sure you're getting points that's not field goals when you get in the red zone with this Atlanta offense. And if you defense, man, you're going to have to find a way to go, beat your, beat your individual matchup, because it's going to get ugly in a hurry, because Gronk and freaking Antonio Brown, that's going to be your biggest problems. Gronk in the red zone, and obviously Antonio Brown in the open field.
Falcons and Bucks coming up this Sunday. It's a 4:15 kick there in Tampa Bay. We've got more to come here, 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Great to be here with you on 3 and Out. Kevin Thomas, BJ Bennett, Ben Troop. Ben, how about those Gators in Bama this week?
You know, Kevin.
Oh.
At the end of the day,
why are you out of breath?
No, look.
Why are you breathing hard?
Listen, at the end of the day, sometimes you get caught up in the conversations in the break. But look, my Florida Gators, AR-15, Emory Jones. If in the words of the great Christian Gokel, what did you say? Put up or shut up earlier today. Don't talk about it. Be about it. I ain't want to misquote you. I'm probably not going to be watching the game because I'm going to be very, very nervous. But no. Do not listen. Do not take me to the game and listen. And Cam with a K, you better not say nothing complimentary about them Gators. But no, I think if you are Florida, you have to make sure that sometimes you don't know how good you are individually, and you don't know how as a player, you don't know how great you are or good you are collectively as a team, and you're going to get tested top to bottom from the defensive line that's been playing well. The receiving core that's found that kind of like found a rhythm against USF, and if you Dan Mullen, you staring across the field to the guy who's the GOAT. You want to be considered. It's one thing to be in the top 10, Kevin and BJ, of the best coaches, but the greatest coach to ever coach college football is across the field, and I ain't taking nothing away from guys like Joe Pye and obviously Bobby Bowden. When I make those sentiments.
What in the world?
I just noticed I had a little goat statue on my desk.
I was thinking of like, has BJ figured out how to do CGI? Like there looks like there's a goat floating around the screen.
No, I just looked over and like behind the empty Coke bottles, I had a little miniature goat. I don't know why that's on here, so I brought it up. We
talking about old Saint Nick. The goat just appeared.
Yeah, out of thin air, there it was to be talked about. We'll come back, hit to the final. Into the final hour of the program, play a little Jeopardy in honor of the legendary Alex Trebek, and certainly yesterday the passing of Norm Macdonald. Yeah. We're playing Burt Reynolds on the Celebrity Jeopardy there on SNL. We'll do that when we return here on 3 and Out this Wednesday afternoon. Love to hear from you. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. We are streaming live, ESPNCoastal.com. You can also catch the show every day on Facebook, Twitter, and our YouTube page at ESPN Coastal. You're on YouTube.
Kevin.
Welcome back to 3 and Out. If you are listening to the soothing sounds of Kevin Thomas, you know what I'm saying, EP. He got an album coming out. He was gonna wait till Thanksgiving, but look, I mean, it should be out right before the Florida-Florida game to you Georgia fans. But Kevin, I mean, I know I talked about my book yesterday. Kevin, talk about the EP real quick before we get to Jeopardy, man. I know this thing is gonna be serious.
Apparently, my son sold me out on that one, and apparently we're taking requests now. So he's getting back channels to Christian saying, "Hey, play that song with my dad's name in it. Thanks, son. I don't want you to play those songs. I don't want those to stop being played."
People love it, including your own family. People love it. Your family loves it.
Do they?
Well, yeah,
I'm just saying,
your
like that
offspring requested it.
Well, I mean, he does have strange taste. I will say that.
No, Kevin, no.
And
But,
he's listening
what
to
about,
it, so
what
I
about, what
love
about
his
the
son.
album? What about the
Yeah.
album, though?
There is no album.
There's not going to be an album?
No,
Why not?
because I said
Ugh.
I mean, Kevin,
No album.
I mean, there
love
already
the
are
album.
multiple songs. I mean, Christian, I don't know if we have time to do it today, but we already have like a dance techno song that we can use. I mean, there are multiple tracks.
Well, you look at that. It's time to play a little Jeopardy here on the show. In honor
it?
of yes. I'm trying to move it forward.
Is it?
I'm in honor of Norm Macdonald, who obviously did a Jeopardy spoof on SNL, and the late Alex Trebek. Christian wanted to play a little college football Jeopardy and let us test our minds and our brains.
Listen, I'm excited. You guys don't seem excited. You're never excited when we do this.
I'm excited because I mean, I don't have to worry about winning or losing it. Is it a group effort? Do me, BJ, and Kevin get a chance to go out there? You know, Kevin and BJ, do we get a chance to like work together? Because if not, it's probably going to be real bad for me. But I mean,
no, there's no working together. This is competition, and we have a final Jeopardy today.
I'm going to take Kevin Thomas musicals for 100.
No, we're playing
Christian.
Jeopardy. It's competitive. We're getting after it.
Picking the category? What are we doing?
I'm gonna let the categories out there. And I did think it was funny though that you guys were like, "What are the categories? Like, what's it gonna be about?" It's college football. That's what we're doing, BJ. It's never a question what we're doing on Jeopardy. It's college football. 3 categories today with 200, 400, 600, 800, and 1,000 as the different levels.
Right.
Yep. Stadiums. Florida, Alabama,
Talk about it.
and Georgia, South Carolina.
Let's do it. Bing, bing, bong, bing, bing.
Yep.
So that's what we have as our categories. I believe BJ is our returning champion from last time. I think Kevin finished in second place because Kevin just would not take any risks, wouldn't guess at all. And so, Ben, I believe you were in third. So, BJ, the board is yours.
All right, I can't remember. Do you have to say your name first to answer, or do you just answer?
Say your name first, just because of the way we're doing this.
All right, Georgia, South Carolina for 200.
All right. For 200, this South Carolina defensive back recorded 3 interceptions in the
Ben,
2019. Ben,
Israel Mukwamu.
that is correct. Had a pick 6 in that game as well. Bonus points, Ben. You know where he plays now?
Now he plays for the Dallas Cowboys.
He sure does. No bonus points, but
I
that's
will
not how
take-
this works. Board's yours, Ben.
I will take Georgia, South Carolina for 400.
For 400, making his SEC debut, this South Carolina freshman rushed for 187
BJ.
yards. 2010s. BJ, go ahead.
Who is Marcus Lattimore?
Marcus Lattimore's correct. Finishing the question in 2010, 17-10 victory over Georgia. BJ, you are in the lead with 400, and the board is yours.
600, Georgia, South Carolina.
All right, Georgia linebacker David Pollock batted down and intercepted a pass from South Carolina quarterback
Kevin.
blank in 2002. Go ahead,
Is
Kevin.
it Dondrell Pinkins? Who is Dondrell Pinkins?
Minus 600.
BJ.
Go
Oh.
ahead, BJ.
Who is Cybel Newton?
Oh, well, you guys don't have to guess. BJ is now at minus 200.
No, Dondrell Pinkins was the one that fumbled at the 2-yard line going in to score.
Yeah.
I think,
that-
You don't have to guess. If you don't know, you don't have to guess.
that.
And I shouldn't be coaching. I'm sorry. Corey Jenkins.
Corey Jenkins
was the quarterback. So new scores: Ben 200, BJ minus 200, Kevin minus 600.
Fine.
BJ, the board's still yours.
800.
All right, for 800 in 2011, this South Carolina player became the third player since 2006 to score a touchdown both on offense and defense in the same game. It was a 68-yard run on a fake punt and a 5-yard fumble return. He also recovered an onside kick late in the game to seal the victory for the game.
Oh my goodness! What's it?
BJ?
BJ, go ahead.
Who is Kelsey Quarles?
That is incorrect. BJ, you're up minus 1,000.
Oh!
What is it? He played defensive.
He sure did play defense.
Oh my goodness! I'm gonna be so mad at this, man. I
Because
can't.
he scored a touchdown on special teams and on defense.
He played defensive
Duh.
tackle.
Ba-ba. Who is Melvin Ingram?
Gingram.
Yep.
I knew it. The defensive tackle.
All right, BJ, the board's still yours. You're at minus 1,000, though.
Well, let's try it. Let's go 1,000.
All right. In 2000, South Carolina's defense intercepted this Heisman Trophy hopeful 5 times in a 21-10 upset of the number 10 Bulldogs in Columbia. The victory broke an 18-game SEC losing streak for the Gamecocks.
Ben
Ben, go ahead.
Quincy Carter.
Quincy Carter's correct. So that finishes
Well
up
done.
the
Wow.
Georgia, South Carolina category. Updated scores real quick. Ben at 1,200, Kevin at minus 600, and BJ at minus 1,000. Ben, the board is yours. Categories against stadiums and Florida, Alabama.
Florida, Alabama for 200.
All right. The last time Florida defeated Alabama was when?
Ben
Ben, go ahead.
2008.
2008 is correct in the SEC championship game in 2008. Ben at 1,400. The board's yours, sir.
400.
400. These two coaches are tied for the most wins in the series with 7.
Oh,
Bam, bam. Who are Nick Saban and Bear Bryant?
I was going to say that.
Oh.
Well, you didn't say it,
I know.
so you're still at minus 600. So
It's
that's
fine.
where we're at. Ben,
600.
this player tallied 245 yards in the 2020 SEC championship game.
Ben.
Ben, go ahead.
220.
Oh, no.
Oh, boy.
Oh, I'm finna say something stupid. Devonta Smith.
That is incorrect.
Wait a minute. 220.
The 2020.
SEC championship game between
BJ?
Florida and Alabama. BJ, go ahead.
Najee Harris. Who is Najee Harris?
Yeah, Najee Harris
he
is
did.
correct. He also had 5
Yeah,
touchdowns
he did. I thought it was
in that game. So, BJ, you're at minus 400 now, and the board is yours.
Yeah, 800.
Florida has won games in this series in 5 different cities: Tuscaloosa, Gainesville, Atlanta, Birmingham, and what is Montgomery?
Montgomery.
Back when Alabama used to play in like every city in Alabama.
1,000.
Drop my score sheet. All right, BJ, for 1,000, these programs met in the first SEC championship game ever in 1992. Who provided the game-winning score for Alabama?
Oh, I know who made the highlight play in that game, I think. I don't know if it's the game-winning score.
BJ.
BJ, go ahead.
Who is Antonio Langham?
Holy cow, that is amazing.
Who are you?
Well done. So updated scores here. Ben 800, BJ 600, Kevin minus 600. BJ, the board is yours. Stadiums are our only category left.
Yeah, let's just work from the bottom.
All right, for 200, this school stadium is lovingly referred to as the Bounce House.
BJ.
BJ, go ahead.
Who is Central Florida?
That is correct. We are tied at 800. BJ, the board is yours.
4.
This stadium is home to the 12th man.
Ben.
BJ.
Ben, go ahead.
Kyle Field. Kyle Field.
Kyle Field is correct. Ben, you are at 1,200. This is
600.
all right. Penn State Stadium is located in University Park, referred to as Happy Valley, but is actually named.
BJ.
BJ, go ahead.
What is Beaver Stadium?
That is amazing because Kevin literally said this earlier and he
I
just
did.
stared at me with a blank face.
I had it. I just don't ring in fast enough. Is my bad.
8.
All right. Clemson and LSU both refer to their stadiums
Ben.
as Death Valley.
Oh,
Ben, go ahead.
No. What's your answer, Ben?
Ben, go ahead.
Just guess. It'd be funny if you get it.
LSU.
That is incorrect. Now finishing the question. Clemson and LSU both refer to their stadiums as Death Valley, but their official names are
BJ,
BJ, go ahead.
Tiger Stadium and Memorial Stadium.
That is correct. BJ, you're at 2,200. Ben, you are down to 400. Last one on the board here, 4,000. This conference is home to the 3 largest capacity stadiums in college football.
BJ,
Kevin, I need a judgment on that one.
I'm playing against him. How am I
okay,
supposed to give a judgment?
I'm going to say Ben, and it might, BJ, just be because he's in the same room as me, and I was trying to give you the benefit of the doubt. But Ben, go ahead.
I'm going to go to Big Ten.
The Big Ten is correct. Now, we do have double jeopardy, Kevin. Unfortunately, because you are in the minuses right now, you do not have a chance.
I'm going to invoke the powers of the federal government and bet money I don't have. How about that? Can I do that?
No.
Oh, okay,
So
sorry.
this is between Ben and BJ. BJ, you are currently in the lead with 2,200.
I would
Ben,
like to.
you have 1,400. For the purposes of this being a radio segment, I'm going to need you guys to go ahead and tell me what you are betting. You have 1,400
All
to
of
bet,
it.
Ben.
Just bet all of it.
All of it.
All right, so Ben is putting 1,400 down. BJ, how many are you putting down?
All of it.
so however much I have to bet to get it right and win and beat him.
Correct. So if he gets this right, he has 2,800.
So I'll bet 1,401.
All right. For BJ. All right. The last time Penn State and Auburn met, the Tigers defeated the Nittany Lions 13-9 in the 2003 Capital One Bowl behind an MVP performance from this player. Now, before you say anything, BJ, type your answer in the chat.
Wait, who
Ben,
won?
don't look at your screen.
Who won?
And the last time Penn State and Auburn met, the Tigers defeated the Nittany Lions 13-9 in the 2003 Capital One Bowl behind an MVP performance from this player.
All right.
Oh, BJ put down. All right, Ben, without looking at your computer, tell me your guess.
Ronnie Brown.
Oh, my goodness, folks. Oh, my goodness, folks.
Is that right?
Ben Troop is correct. That puts Ben at
Ben won
2,800. BJ put Carlos Dansby. He was incorrect. That brought his grand total down to 599 points. Ben Troop
He won a game.
is our
Well
Jeopardy.
done. Well
Give me the
done,
cheese,
sir.
give me the cheese. I'm a bad man.
There you go. Our nod to Jeopardy here on a Wednesday afternoon. We'll come back with more 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network.
BJ Bennett, Ben Trout back here with you on 3 and Out. There's PJ Zuko as well. Kevin Thomas stepping away a little bit early this afternoon. We'll chat with Gerald Anderson coming up in about 15 minutes. Former big-time defensive tackle for the Dogs. Won some SEC championships in Athens, 02, 05. And we'll get his perspective, Ben, on what is potentially a generational Georgia defense. And you think about the defensive tackles, right? You think about Marcus Stroud and Richard Seymour, Big Gerald. You think about Jonathan Sullivan. You think about, the great interior defensive linemen that you've had, Geno Atkins. Where does Jordan Davis rank when you talk about the all-time great or generationally great Georgia interior defensive lineman, Jeff Owens? So we'll chat with Gerald Anderson about this Georgia defensive front. But I had an interesting thought. We were talking about this in the show meeting. I wanted to get your perspective on, Ben, because I said yesterday, and a lot of people were surprised, that I think this is going to be a close game between your Florida Gators and Alabama. And I think there are a number of factors, okay? First and foremost, I think Florida's good. And I think that's one of the few things that I was actually right on in the preseason. I think Florida's better than people think. I saw some preseason rankings that had Florida right like 18 to 24. And I'm thinking, no, this could be a top 10 team. And what, right? Ben's Florida 11th now, I think. And if you win Saturday, maybe even if you play close on Saturday, you could move up. But the factors are Florida's good. They have big-time playmakers. It's at home, and you have a really good defense. And I know Kevin doesn't like when I bring this up, but I also wonder if there's an element of math at play here, where Alabama has won 16 games in a row. 16 games in a row. And there's a famous quote by Lou Holtz, you can't win every game, only the next one. But since the Miami teams of the early 2000s, since 2002, the last 20 years, only 3 Power 5 teams have won 25 games or more in a row. That's Alabama in 15-16, Clemson in 18-19, and Florida State in 2012 to 2014. Is there something to be said, Ben? I mean, you played it for just ultimately you're going to get beat. And the law of averages, you start getting up to 16, 17, 18 games in a row. That doesn't happen historically. Is there something to be said about your time's just up for a loss? And could there be something to that with Alabama?
Yes, and because I think what happens is, BJ, you don't, as a player and a coach, you don't really keep up with the streaks, but you start getting asked those questions by the media, and those things start trickling down, through the team from the head coach. You start saying to yourself, we don't really care about streaks. Well, of course you care about streaks. The goal is to go out there and win every single game you play, and the goal is to be 1-0 after every single week. So when you start talking about streaks, those are things that aren't talked about a lot. Those aren't something that's like normal when you start talking about the day in, day out, a grind of a football team. So yes, BJ, I do think numbers are a part of it. I do think streaks starts added to the already built-in pressure that comes with being Alabama. So yes, Nick Saban isn't always like freaky when they win. It's always something. Either certain things have to matter. Like it's either a streak, it's either a Heisman Trophy quarterback or a really, really good quarterback, or some weird things that start happening like a kick six. So if it's Alabama, it's almost like they're their own worst enemy because they're so good and you're not beating them straight up. It becomes like, BJ, every time Alabama loses, you go back to something freaky in the game. When Bo Nix, when he first beat Alabama in the Iron Bowl, somebody got a pick off that the ball was sitting on somebody's back and it was a pick six for 100 yards. You start saying, oh, there go that crazy stuff. Or Johnny Manziel just running out of, just running in and out, and he finds, the freaking I think it was the running back or the receiver in the end zone. So yes, BJ. So this is something else to add to it, with everything else that could happen with Alabama, because the law of averages or a numbers correction game. So yes, if you talk about the streak and you talk about how many games in a row, and you start factoring in the Bryce Young, being his first start in his first big game ever, a team that's trying to live up to the standard of Alabama. And you add that with how many, 20-some games in a row? Yes, BJ. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and hopefully that win is this weekend.
Right, and that's kind of what I look at when I try to project or predict an upset. And I'm not good at predicting games. I think our standings, PJ, I think our standings on ESPN Coastal reflect that. But when I think about an upset, I think about a team having won, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 games in a row. Once you get much higher than that, you don't see a lot of that in modern history. And I just wonder, is that an element? Now, Kevin mentioned this earlier in the show too, and yesterday. Look, does Florida believe they can play with Alabama? Well, here's a question, and Ben, I know you know the answer. One team in Alabama's current 16-game winning streak has played the Crimson Tide within single digits? You know who that team is? Do you know who that team was?
One team is what was the year again?
One team. Alabama currently has won 16 games in a row. One team in that span has played Alabama within single digits. The Florida Gators.
That would be Florida in the SEC championship game.
Yeah, so Florida knows they can do it. Here's where it gets weird, and I'm not saying the players should want that. I'm not in any way suggesting the players think this way. But if you're a fan, okay, and you're looking at, and I know Alabama can beat anybody, but since the Miami teams of the early 2000s, the last 20 years, nobody has won 30 games in a row. Nobody's won. It hasn't happened in this generation. If Alabama is to continue on and go undefeated, they're going to be getting close to that. Would it make sense if you're a fan, because we've talked about this before, it's not like you said, Ben, if you lose, it's when you lose. If you assume you're going to lose and the numbers have to kind of reset themselves, a loss to Alabama or to Florida for Alabama would not be that bad. It's out of division, so it doesn't count, head to head like LSU or A&M or Auburn would. It's not to a bad team. You would lose to the number 11 team in the country. It's not late in the season where if you lose in November, that might be too much to overcome. To reset the numbers, and you think about an early season loss, a couple years ago you lost to Ole Miss early, still won the national championship. Might this be a game that would be kind of worth losing if you're Alabama, where you would reset all the numbers, reset your streak, you don't lose to a division foe, you win out, you're still obviously going to be the SEC champion and in the playoff? Or would you be okay having won, I don't know, what would it be? It'd be like 27, 28 games in a row if you get to the playoff. Would you be okay with that mathematical history, or would it make sense to lose? I'm not saying the players, Ben. I'm saying if you're a fan, would it make sense to kind of lose this game, reset things, and then win the inevitable 12 or 13 games in a row Alabama's going to?
Obviously, the fan in me says, I will say yes, but the analyst in me says yes for this reason, BJ. Alabama is the one team that not only do they need a loss, they benefit more from losses than the wins. Like, they don't have to win the SEC because this is about their postseason aspirations. Like, no one really wants the pressure of going undefeated. And BJ, this becomes down to who is the best loss on our schedule this year. LSU isn't as attractive. Auburn, we don't know how good they are. Texas A&M is going to probably start losing because Haynes King, their starting quarterback, is done. So, Ole Miss got Matt Corral, but we've already seen that. It's no Georgia this year on the schedule in the regular season for Alabama. So this year Florida is the most attractive team, and they're the best team to lose to, because this propels Florida. Because this is one thing you ain't factoring in either. When you lose to Alabama, that propels your team to play better the rest of the year, because that puts you in the driver's seat. So that actually makes Florida a better team down the stretch, because they have Alabama on their resume. So yes, for Alabama, it's who gives us the most quality loss. It's usually LSU, Auburn, or Texas A&M. Well, LSU lost to UCLA, so that's not going to be as attractive. Auburn, we don't know how good of a team they are, because they average 60 points a game against lesser competition. And Texas A&M might not be as good as a team by the time they play Alabama. So for all things, it's going to benefit Alabama if it's going to be a team to lose to. Surprise, it's going to be. And BJ, is the third game of the year. By the time you get to the end of the year, it's still going to be a loss, but they're going to be far away removed from that. So yes, the timing is right, the team is right, the numbers are right. I think hopefully Saturday everything comes together and Florida does their end of the deal. And in St. Nick, he only gives out one present a year. Maybe he gives it to Dan Mullen this year.
Yeah, and a couple of thoughts. Again, could Alabama be sort of mathematically due for a poor performance or a loss? And then taking it a step forward, to your point, Ben, would this be the game that you could clearly lose and it not affect anything, right? Because before the Georgia-Clemson game, what'd you hear people say? Well, it's not really that big of a deal if Georgia loses. They won, but if Alabama loses this game, does it change anything? No. If they win every game in the SEC West, they're still going to the conference title game. If they win that, they're going to be in the playoff. It doesn't change anything. And I think you'll see a lot of people, if Florida wins this game, go, Alabama's done. Nope. Let me take you back to 2015. 2015, Alabama won the national championship. They lost the game on September 19th to Ole Miss. Ole Miss was ranked 10th in the country. That was on September 19th. Went on to win the national championship. This Saturday will be September 18th. Florida is ranked 11th in the country. A little symmetry. Ole Miss won that game. If Florida wins this game, mathematically, it could actually reset Alabama to win the national championship. Then we got to get to Big Gerald. We'll come back and chat with Gerald Anderson, former Georgia star and Ware County Gator. He'll join us next. 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Georgia's defensive front has been dominating college football so far this season. You think about guys like Jordan Davis along the interior of the defensive line, and you are seeing a defense that has not yet allowed a touchdown, and that defensive front a big reason why. And with us now to talk some Georgia defense, talk about the Dogs. Had a great career at the University of Georgia as an interior defensive lineman himself. Gerald Anderson, also former Ware County Gator, joins us on the program. Gerald, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Doing great. Thanks so much for coming on. And look, we've seen great defensive lines at Georgia year after year, great defensive fronts. In your mind, as one of those defensive linemen that was a big-time playmaker for the Dogs, how good is this front?
This front that they got is pretty good. I played with some pretty talented defensive linemen there at the University of Georgia, David Pollock, Quentin Moses, Charles Johnson, Jonathan Sullivan, just to name a few. But these guys are they get after it pretty good. They seem very hungry. They got a lot of experience, and then they're coached up pretty good. So this front that Georgia has it could be ranked up as one of the top defensive fronts that they've had. But I've been very impressed over the last couple of games and just watching the things that they're doing. So I can tell they're coached up real well. They're very talented. They're hungry, and they're doing a great job.
Gerald, the one thing about interior defensive lineman play, the last couple of years, the production wasn't what it is now, because now they're letting these guys get up the field. It's not more like, gaps, trying to figure out, what, stay in your gap. It's really like getting up the field, trying to keep pressure on these quarterbacks, not making sure these guys stay in the pocket. How much freer is it being an interior D lineman when they letting you kind of just go out there and be in attack mode instead of kind of being a two-gapper?
It's a lot different. Like you said, when I played, it was more of a control your gap, keep the linemen off of the linebackers, let the linebackers flow and make plays. Today's game is just a lot different. It's evolved to a whole different element where they are interior guys are a lot more athletic. They're being able to freely just get around gaps, and basically once they shoot a gap or beat a gap, they're basically able to be an athlete and make plays. So it's just the game has evolved. It's a lot faster than it was, and the guys are just able to just kind of freely make plays and not have to control a gap so much.
And Gerald, we love talking about quarterbacks and the big plays, but you look at Georgia Clemson, for example, a couple of weeks ago. That was 10-3, and the score, the touchdown, was a defensive touchdown. When you have a dominant defensive front, just how much of an ability does that give you to control the game, regardless of the opponent you're facing?
That's a fun game, for a defensive player, especially defensive lineman. When you see a game like that for a defensive team, that's almost like an offense scoring 50 points. I mean, you kind of look at it and say, hey, as a defense, we shut their run game down. We held them to 3 points, and we scored on defense. That's almost equivalent to an offense saying, hey, we rushed for 400 yards, we threw for another 400 yards, and we scored 50 points on this team. So that's kind of what that was for a defense team. It's kind of always great to have a game like that, and it's great to see a defense do it. So for me, it was fun to actually watch.
And Gerald, when you think about defensive line play at Georgia, especially interior defensive line play, I mean, Marcus Stroud, Richard Seymour, Jeff Owens, Geno Atkins, Jonathan Sullivan, John Jenkins, D'Angelo Tyson, yourself. Jordan Davis is a mountain. I mean, he's a mountain of a man, 6'6", 365 pounds, but bigger than what he does, as far as like creating havoc and, just putting, making sure that opposing center doesn't get any sleep. He's running down quarterbacks like he's a linebacker. Just talk about not just what he does, on the defensive line, but just his impact on the entire team.
Like you said, I mean, he is a mountain of a player, and you see a lot of big players, a lot of big, massive players that it might just be one-dimensional as far as being able to control a center, control one gap, or control even two gaps back at one time, but. Just like I stated earlier, the game has totally evolved. These guys are able to run sideline to sideline. Now you got interior guys that are, big as offensive linemen, but they're running like defensive ends, and that's kind of it's kind of, if you want to, equivalent to like what they say about LeBron James. I mean, he's the size of a power forward, but he plays like a point guard. It's kind of the same thing. It's just the way the game has evolved. The athletes have evolved, and a guy like Jonathan Davis, he's a great player. I mean, I've watched him play. I've seen things he's done. I've even seen some stuff off the field, and he's just an incredible person. And I could just tell he has that kind of work ethic, that kind of motor that just have made him a great player. So he's the typical interior guy that they're looking for in that kind of scheme that is starting to change the game.
Gerald Anderson here with us on 3 and Out. And Gerald, you were on some championship teams in Athens. I know it's early. I know we're talking about a couple of games, but based on what we've seen so far, does this look like a championship team to you?
If I'm going to be totally honest with you, there's a lot of missing pieces right now. The defense is playing lights out, which is always great. We are pretty banged up right now in the perimeter game on offense. I would like to see a lot of changes there as far as just getting guys back and getting them in the rotation. I think it's going to help open up the run game. And once those things happen, I think you will see a championship caliber University of Georgia team. Right now, I just don't want to count those eggs before they hatch. I think this team has the ability, the chance, the players to be at that level. But right now, if I had to say this is a championship caliber team, I don't want to label them like that. I've seen a lot of things go a whole different way. I mean, we got a huge opponent this weekend that we're getting ready for. And like I just tell everybody, let's just take one game at a time. Let's get guys back. Let's keep growing offensively and defensively. And then we'll see at the end of the season how the chips may stack.
And Gerald, even sticking with with what you just mentioned about like just being hesitant to give these guys that moniker of they are a championship team. No George Pickens on offense, no Darnell Washington on offense. Obviously, Stetson Bennett is filling in right now for JT Daniels. They haven't had a lot of injuries on the defensive front. Is this team good enough to just maintain what it's been doing defensively if and when injuries do occur?
We will hope so. It's hard to really say. I hope they are. I don't want to see, I think, like this past game against UAB, a lot of our number 2s and 3s on defense got a lot of reps, and that's where it starts at. These guys are getting the quality reps that they need. That way, when their number is called to step up and be a starter and get those starter-type reps against the number ones of an opposing team, they're able to perform at the same level that the number 1 guys are. So, I hope to keep a lot of guys safe, injury-free. And at the end of the season, we get a full team back ready to play and be that championship caliber team that we're looking for.
And Gerald, Ben mentioned Stetson Bennett. You're obviously from Waycross. He's from Blackshear, and we saw him with 5 touchdown passes in the first half against UAB. Just talk about Stetson Bennett, and I know we've had some guests on this week who've said, look, he's been there when Georgia's needed him. You've needed a quarterback to come in and give you a spark. You've needed a quarterback to come in off the bench or to start for a couple of weeks. Just talk about what he's meant to the program and that performance on Saturday.
That performance on Saturday is just a testament of what he's done since he's been there. You got a kid who didn't come in as a scholarship type kid. He's undersized, worked his butt off. We saw what he did last year when we were kind of, looking for that particular quarterback to lead this team. And, he seems like a kid that's just done it without question or without complaining. And I've kind of been proud to see what he's done. I mean, I know a lot of people have griped about, hey, we got 2 5-star quarterbacks that we signed, and, we want to see one of those guys eventually get on the field and play. But, I did read an article, and I kind of grew a lot more respect for Coach Kirby Smart of saying that, hey, I got, a group of receivers that need some confidence, need some experience, and against a UAB team, I didn't want to throw a quarterback out there who needed some experience and needs some confidence along with the perimeter game. So I threw a guy out there who has the experience, has the confidence, and he can lead this team. And it worked out fine for him. He threw 5 touchdown passes. He did a heck of a job leading that team. And it made a lot of sense. And I think it gave the receivers and tight ends some valuable experience and confidence to hit that we need to kind of springboard this offense with the amount of injuries and inexperience that we have right now.
And Gerald, with so much talk about George and what you guys are looking to do this year, and rightfully so. A guy like Stetson Bennett, like you just mentioned, it's more than just a fill-in. I mean, you look at what his impact was. No, Jamie Newman decides to not play last year. JT Daniels was injured. He steps in and plays very, very well. I don't think he should have got judged off what he didn't do against Alabama and Florida. But then you look at this year and how he has a stay-ready mentality. Just talk about how that is really the hardest thing to do in college. It's not so much can you play or can you not play. Can you always be mentally sharp and ready to step in when your number is called?
That's the biggest thing that makes a college football player, especially if you're not an immediate starter. You got to always be ready to step in and get those starter reps, especially if you're number two. You never know when your name's going to be called. Most guys that work their way into a starting role, they probably have started out as being a number two, of course, or playing a lot on special teams. And maybe the guy in front of them, maybe 1 year he graduates, 1 year he, let's say, quit the team, 1 year he's injured. And you never know when your name is going to be called to fill that void. So you got to always be ready, not just physically, but definitely mentally, and be ready to perform, because there's, every year these schools are recruiting to be the number one. So they're always recruiting to replace you, no matter where you're at, no matter who you are. So you always got to be mentally and physically ready to play.
Gerald Anderson with us here on 3 and Out. And finally, Gerald, I know you've done some coaching. You talked about maintaining that week-to-week mindset. If you're Kirby Smart, what's your message to a team that everybody's talking about, everybody's loving on, everybody's hyping up, and you still have a long way to go? What's your message if you're Kirby Smart?
My biggest message is do not believe the hype. I mean, if Coach Smart is hearing the same things that I'm just hearing, and I'm just a fan at this point, everybody's already talking about, hey, we got a chance to play Alabama twice this year. They're already thinking that it's going to be Alabama, Georgia in the SEC championship game, and it's going to be Alabama and Georgia probably in the playoffs if we finish up 1-2. Do not believe the hype. Take it one game at a time. I mean, everybody has their day, and you want to stay focused. You want to get your guys back healthy. You want those guys to come in focused and be game ready, and just take it one game at a time. Focus on your next opponent. South Carolina is the number one focus at this point, and then we'll go along next week and figure out what we're going to do from there. But do not worry about what can happen in December. Do not worry about who's going to be in the playoffs. Just take it one game at a time and just keep being focused and keep being hungry throughout the rest of the year.
Great perspective from Gerald Anderson, former star defensive lineman for the Georgia Bulldogs, Waycross native as well. Gerald, thanks so much, my friend. We'll chat again soon.
Thank you.
Gerald Anderson and Ben Quickly said, hey, there's still some things we got to work on, got to take it week by week, and I'm sure that's what the players are hearing from the staff right now.
Absolutely. Kirby Smart makes sure those guys have, just gotta keep that different kind of focus. BJ not really worrying about what's going on down the road. All they can control is the next game. The most important game is always the next game coming up. Do not look past the Gamecocks, BJ. We are only 2 years removed for these same Gamecocks coming to Georgia between the hedges and walking away victorious.
We'll come back, get you ready for Braves baseball next. 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Tough loss last night for the Braves, 5-4, but the Phillies lost, so it's okay. If the Braves lose, you just have to make sure the Phillies lose to kind of maintain things here in the NL East. But hopefully Atlanta can bounce back against Colorado. 4.5 games up, obviously winding down the regular season. I think you feel pretty good about where you are. 4.5 games up. Huascar Ynoa goes tonight. But, Ben, where's your confidence level where we are like 3 weeks left, and you're talking about a 4.5 game lead, 3 or 4 weeks left. You feeling pretty good?
I'm feeling pretty good, BJ, man, because the Braves are the ones being chased. They're not chasing the Phillies right now. So, look, I give this Braves team a lot of credit. Put themselves to be both in the wild card chase, BJ, regardless of what happened with the NL East. But I think this Braves team is saying, look, we don't want to leave our season a chance. 3 years for Snit and Alex Anthopoulos, three NL East champions. They're trying to go for the 4-peat, BJ, and the fact that they are doing this without Ronald Acuna Jr., no Mike Soroka, and with the newer additions like Soler and those guys, and arguably the best infield in baseball when you talk about just from an offensive standpoint. So very, very impressive with this Braves team, finding a way to maintain, and they did the whole win-loss to find themselves 4.5 games up with 19 games to go. Very, very impressive with this Braves squad.
And it's amazing. You look at the production from the infield and the power and the RBI numbers, you kind of forget about the outfield. Adam Duvall last night hit home run number 35, and he went over 100 RBI, now at 101 for Adam Duvall. So congratulations to him. But, yeah, not a great start from Toussaint last night. Huascar Ynoa goes tonight. And, look, wrap it up. I think Kevin said the magic number is 15. Let's go ahead and move towards that. But I think you're feeling pretty good about the Atlanta Braves, where they are, and a chance with the schedule, at least on paper, not being that challenging to take care of the division and win yet another division title. Huascar Ynoa on the mound tonight, and that coming up a little bit later. We'll have afternoon baseball for you tomorrow. First pitch, I believe, set for 12:25 tomorrow, Braves and Rockies. But plenty of college football talk still to go the rest of the week. Want to thank Jamie Bradford for joining us on the show today. Also, Corey Woodruff and Gerald Anderson. We will see you tomorrow, 3 and Out, all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network, ESPNCoastal.com.